Okay, hi everyone. So today is, what is today? January 23rd, 2026. It's the fourth Friday of the month. This is our monthly Cosmobiology Institute research meeting. To discuss anything you want, I have two announcements to make, and then we'll jump into this. Announcement number one is, of course, the conference, Cosmic Discovery Conference. Um, I always forget the dates. Let me bring it up. Um, Right, April 24th to the 26th. Um, so that's coming up not too long from now. It's like 3 months. So 3 months from now is the conference in Nashville, Tennessee. Um, Unique event, all centered around evidence-based astrology, actual data-driven information about different ideas in astrology. And so the program is up and everything's ready and you can register. And if you do register, you can put in the code FIRST50. That's FIRST50 in capital letters, and you get an extra discount if you do that. Um, Second announcement is, let me get back to my Zoom. Okay. Um, Second announcement is you're going to get a survey probably within the next week or so to ask you what you want to do with these meetings. We've gone through some different ideas. The original idea was to listen to what people are doing with research. It ends up there are not a lot of people actually engaged in research. So, um, do you want to have an open format for us to discuss, or would you like to have a program? Anyway, there'll be more examples of things to ask that'll be asked when you get the survey. But you can think about it, and when you get the survey, decide what you want to do because the Institute is just here to promote research in astrology, evidence-based practice. And we just want to do whatever will work. So let us know what'll work. Christopher, do you have anything to add to that, to the forthcoming survey and anything?
Oh, not much. I think the survey will elaborate on it, and I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to nudge anyone in one direction or another right
Right.
now, influence them unduly. But we've talked about a few things like rotating moderators
Yeah.
uh, rather than having Santino do it all the time. We can discuss whether we want longer meetings or shorter meetings. Uh, whether people want there to be an occasional educational component, which could be related to either coding or to short lectures on basics of statistics, just a whole variety of things. So hopefully
Right.
we'll get a survey put together and that will illuminate what you feel that what your particular needs are and how we can best address that.
Right. I think one of the questions will be the possibility of half, like the first half of the evening could be presenting information, second half getting questions, discussion. So yeah, you'll get, like Christopher said, we don't want to discuss it a lot now because that'll tend to bias. We want people to just get the survey fresh, come up with your own thoughts of what you would like. Okay, so you will get that probably within the next week or so. So as of right now, um, we're here to help you with your research questions. What topics do you have? You can just unmute yourself and anything you want us to discuss in terms of research methods, research that you're doing. Greg, it looks like you're back and your system is working, and I saw it took some time. And I know you've been having this plan for your research. We could discuss that or anybody else. We've got a nice group here, so there's 9 of us here now. And welcome, Michelle and Pio. Yeah,
Thanks, Santino. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so um, who wants to go first?
This is Greg. Can I go first?
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking of just calling on you because,
Yeah.
you it's been a while, some months ago, you had started talking about your research. We discussed some different approaches and came up with some ideas. So go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I've been working on it steadily. I actually retired from work in October. So since then, I've spent quite a bit of time on it. Um, I ran into a few obstacles that are forcing me to change my approach to it, but we're still moving forward and learning from it. The original plan was to take some scenarios, some case studies, and identify the planets involved and the aspects in the event it corresponded to, and let people determine from a list what houses were being represented. But all the case studies I found so far, usually there's two or three planets involved, and the transit is complicated. Uh, so it's going to really, I think I'm going to have my case studies reviewed by people who are actual astrologers and really know what they're looking at. It's too complicated just to give it to someone that's not well versed in it. But at the same time, I've been learning things from it. Um, and I have had a few good examples where I'm seeing progressions, solar arc directions, the planets involved in those aligning with the planets that are transiting at the time of key events. The only real difficulty I've had so far, one of my case studies was Maya Angelou, and she has 6 memoirs telling her life story in details, but there's no dates. So it's really challenging to try and some of the events that she went through, be able to pin it to her chart and events happening because you don't know the dates. Um, but another one I looked at was Jimmy Carter. They've got dates for everything.
Yeah.
that
Yeah. So where have you gotten with defining? I mean, one of the challenges with research is defining having definitions for things. If we had talked earlier that you were going to write some interpretations and then see if they fit. I mean, if you
yes,
do research of the kind where you look at dates of people and then you see if it matches, it's slightly more it's slightly better than just anecdotal evidence because you've at least documented. So it's like an exploratory research where you're documenting. The clearer your statements are beforehand, the greater confidence we have in the conclusions. I mean, obviously,
yes,
if your research is extremely loose, then it's easy to rationalize or whatever. So one of the challenges is how do we define things so that we have greater confidence in the results without overly defining so we miss things that we want to explore. But I
correct.
think you had some ideas on having clearly defining what to expect,
Yeah,
right?
I have a glossary that I use in all my work. With the definition of each house, planet, and sign, and I'm pretty good at sticking to that. And what I'm really looking at is being able to write a narrative about the events that happened in which planets are involved, and then match just confirm where you have a discrepancy. Well, let's say someone gets married. You have one where it's a seventh house event. You have another house system where it's in sixth house event. Um, you should be able to look at it and see that, well, the systems that reflect the seventh house are more likely, to be aligned with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really loosey goosey. I'm very picky. I also work with extremely tight orbs.
Right. Yeah, I think you had a very clear procedure. So you want to list the more that, I think I'm just clarifying for everybody else who isn't familiar with what you were doing, but my memory is that you're going to list all the house systems you're going to use. You're going to list the methods you use with what
Yes,
aspects, what orbs, and then you're going to
yes,
have a glossary. And then you should have, a list of associations like moon is mother or Mercury is communication or whatever. You'll have that, so you're not making it up as you're interpreting.
correct.
So you're going to
And
refer to that.
that was in place before I even started. I mean,
Right, you got all
I've
that,
been
and
using that for years.
right, and then the other thing is you'll have a clear statement how you put that glossary together.
Yes,
Like the progressed planet does this, the natal planet does that, the aspect does this. So it gives some sense of how that syntax is brought together. And if you're using things like rulerships or whatever, does that modify, you have some kind of as clear as possible statement of exactly what's expected. This is one of the great problems in astrology is that the language is often so loose that you can make sense out of anything.
Hmm.
Uh, because sometimes we'll emphasize the ruler more than the aspect, or we emphasize the house more than this, and then you have the dispositor, and you have all these possibilities. So my understanding is you got that all pretty well defined.
yes,
And I think what you wanted to do was to have um, you wanted like several people to work on it. Was this to make sure that what you conclude is agreed upon by anybody who goes through the procedure?
yes.
Right. So if you have like five people or three, whatever, let's say it's three. If you have three people, look at say it's a solar arc to natal, and you're going to tell them, read the glossary, follow these instructions, and then assess how well the interpretation fits the event. That's basically the idea, right?
Yes,
Okay, so that's good. When things are somewhat subjective or, not purely quantitative, one way to deal with it is to have several people assess it. And if they're assessing different results, like one says on a score of 1 to 10, this gets a 9, like it's almost exact. Somebody else says it gets a 3, then your procedure is pretty clumsy. Um, and we're not able to conclude anything definitively. I think what you were saying is you want the three or five people to be astrologers so they're familiar with the language, but they're supposed to follow your glossary and your rules and not override it with their own personal beliefs, right?
correct.
Okay,
But what I'm using is fairly general. It's just there's certain things that I stick with that differs from the mainstream because I work with the elements and the modes. To give an example, just the eighth house, that's water. Like Pluto, Scorpio, the eighth house is fixed water. So, from my point of view, that's not other people's money. Other people's money is Earth, but emotionally, it's the feeling of being in debt to other people from an emotional point of view.
right,
So the
Hmm.
only real difference I have is I try and really tailor how you're interpreting the symbols to their element and mode, especially the elements.
Hmm.
So just like the fourth house, I don't consider that real estate. That's a sense of feeling at home, of feeling emotionally
right.
secure and safe. It's
Yeah.
not a house that you put a for sale sign in front of.
So I have
So
a thought.
that's the only way. That's really the main way I differ from the
Right.
typical interpretation.
So would it be better you're going to do this, you're going to have two or three other people do it, or however many, um, say it's two other people. Would it be better if the other two people are not astrologers, So they're strictly following your rules, because I don't know
That
if
was that was
people,
my original intent,
yeah.
but what I'm finding, these things are these aspects are getting complicated. I mean, there's it's not just one planet square another planet. You have usually there's multiple these key life events. There's multiple planets at play. So it really takes someone that knows what they're looking at is what I'm learning. Can I show you the workbook I'm using?
Well, before we get into the workbook, I want to discuss this issue of how you're going to assess this,
Yes.
because one concern, and everybody can share. I mean, I'm talking a lot here, but I'm sure all of you have some ideas about this. One concern that I have is, in my personal experience, every astrologer is different. There's no two that are the same. So, and most astrologers love their system. They love their little quirks, they
Yes.
just love it. Like, well, Aquarius is really not that eccentric. It's a fixed air sign. And another people, oh, it's ruled by Uranus. They're very airy and detached. We all have
Yeah.
certain things that we emphasize. Um, if you're like me, you put much more emphasis on the aspects and the planets than the signs. I don't really use rulers at all. Like, everybody's different. And my concern is that you're going to have a lot of variability in assessments, not due to your procedures, but due to the astrologers not being able to resist
Yes.
putting their spin. See, variability is a big thing in research, and Christopher can talk a lot about this. He's, a mathematician, is that the more that your scores vary, the worse your study is. So, what the ultimate thing would be, if you have three people assess it and they all get from a 1 to 10, they all say, well, this worked between, say, 5 and 7. They're pretty close. And so I'm just concerned that the naive person, the person who's not doesn't know astrology, has maybe too much information and gets confused. So that's bad on that end. The problem with the astrologers is they're going to impose a lot of their own thinking, which would lead to a lot of different range of scores.
Well,
So,
that's why I'm taking the approach that I am. The signs aren't even a part of it. It's simply looking at aspects made in what houses the planets are in.
okay,
It's,
see,
it's
that's
totally
good.
focused on the houses.
And are you going to use the rulers at all, or just the house it's in?
Um, I use the rulers, but just as a way of confirming the house. One thing that I've come across is finding is using the meridian based systems. You can have the seventh house in a different sign than the ascendant based systems. So that's kind of helping me decide between the two, which are more accurate, because you have wedding dates for anyone gets married, divorced. You have actual dates of seventh house events.
Okay, let me just underscore this point. From a research standpoint,
Yes.
the more variability you have in scores by your people who are assessing this, you can have, say you have 5 people, and they're going to look at some event in President Jimmy Carter's life or whoever, whatever.
Mhm.
And so he became president on this date and he had these transit progressions, and they're going to evaluate whether it fits or not. If you have high variability in the scores, variability means some people are scoring it high, some people are scoring it low, it's going to incline your results to be completely inconclusive.
Correct.
The more consistent they are, the more you'll have some kind of conclusion, whether it's good or bad or whatever, it'll be at least a conclusion. So I'm really, really concerned about this variability. And Christopher, why don't you say something about that? Does that make?
Yeah, it's if once you have all these scores from various people, and the more people actually, the better.
Right.
Because if you have, it may be very consuming, but if a lot of people are doing the scoring, there may be a few outliers, but you may have sort of a general consensus. And a graphical way that's very easy to look at what's happening is something called a box plot. It's an easy way to see sort of what the center of your data is and how
Hmm.
spread out things are and where they are. And for those who aren't familiar with the box plot, you basically try and divide up your data into quarters, like a bottom 25%, the next quarter, uh, the median is used for the middle of your data, third quarter, and then the top quarter. So you numerically, you have like a five number summary of a low score, what we call the first quartile, separating bottom 25% from what's above, the median, third quartile, and then the high score. But the box plot gives you a very easy way to look at it visually, to see how things are spread out, where the center of your data is, and also helps you identify outliers in the data. If you took the mean of the scores, uh, the problem with the mean is just the usual kind of average we learn in school. Add up the scores, divide by the number of scores. The problem with that is it can be very affected by one extremely low score or one extremely high score. And we all know that experience when, we take several tests in a course throughout the semester, and one low score can ruin our final average for us. That's why in this instance, the median, which is the middle score, it's not affected so much by these extremes, and it's might be a better average of the center of your data. Uh, I also wanted to make one comment. You said you had a biography of Maya Angelou, but there were no dates given for these events. Possibly you might be able to use some of the artificial intelligence bots available for free on the internet to find some dates that are linked to those events. I've done that from time to time and it will scour, a lot of them will scour the internet, look at several sites, and if dates are attached to those events anywhere, it usually finds them. So just something
Yeah.
to try.
Well,
Might
I was
work.
able. I'm doing detective work. I even use ancestry.com. I've got census records, all
Oh,
kinds of
okay.
records showing where people were at certain times because she moved around throughout her life. But for
Oh, okay.
example, I know why the cage bird sings says she was 8 years old. It was a Saturday morning in late spring when she was raped by her mom's boyfriend. So I was able to find from the wide point of view, looking at progressions in solar arcs, which, a whole year is just 1 degree.
Right.
In both cases, Saturn was being activated. Then I was
Mm,
able to finally found that on a June 13th, late spring, a Saturday, Jupiter was conjunct Saturn, transiting Jupiter. And
yeah.
on the other end, you had the Sun and Mars opposing Saturn. So I was able to pin that one down. It's just those kind of things are taking a lot of work, a lot of legwork to try and figure it out, versus other books are very good on dates and when things happen.
Oh, okay.
It's just time consuming. I have had one person volunteer to help so far, so I'm hoping as time goes on we'll be able to recruit a couple more. Once I have everything to where I feel like I can hand it off to someone. I used to be on the board of the Cincinnati NCGR, and I still have some contacts down there. I'm going to reach out to them and see if some of them would want to help me on my project, because I used to give lectures on this very thing I'm working on back then when I was
Oh,
active. Um, but can I just quickly just show you what I have set up. It'll
Let
only
me
take a
before
minute.
you show us, I want to summarize some really key points because if we don't execute these key points, it's going to make a huge difference. Christopher mentioned having many people, the more people that assess the scores, the better. This is huge. I just have to underscore this because it's massive. It can make the difference between you spend all this time doing your research and it's inconclusive to having something conclusive. For example, if you have 10, I'm just repeating what Christopher said to underscore the importance of it. If you have 10 people evaluate each thing, that's hugely better than having three. Hugely better.
Yes,
In terms of being able to conclude anything from the study. So I just want to make these points. Now, maybe that's not reasonable to do, whatever, but at least we're aware of it. Number two, if you have 10 people assess a given event and they score it, say from 1 to 10, how accurate it is, it's, I'm just repeating what Christopher said because I don't want to just say it and then, oh, that was interesting and move on because these are very powerful, is use the median score of the 10 people. If you have an even number of people, you can use the average of the two that are closest to the middle. Use the middle score is hugely better than using the average. People who are not
correct.
trained in statistics, just they do average for everything. But in this case, you want to use the median. I'm just underscoring these points because this is what Cosmobiology Institute can do for you guys. We can help you design a good study. You're the expert in what you're doing. You have to have a content expert decide what you want to do. And so, even though we're also astrologers, it's not our job to tell you how to think about astrology. It's our job to tell you how to conduct the study in the best way. I would take the time, almost no matter what it costs, to have a lot of people assess it, number one. And I would use the median score, number two. Important points that Christopher is making. And number three, I want to mention this. How you pick out the transit, solar arcs, progressions, whatever you're going to use, has to be very, very clearly defined. Clearly defined means that if someone else replicates your study, they would come up with the same transits, progressions, and solar arcs. You do not want that to be subjective. It,
Correct.
so again, even if I don't really understand this stuff that well, but I have a software and I know how to run the solar arcs and progressions and transits, you have some criteria for the ones that you're not including, the ones you are, because you're not going to include every single transit, progression, and solar arc. So you have, I'm assuming you have some discrimination as to which ones you include. If you define rules such as if the event has to do with success, they become president or whatever, then you include the transit or progression if the moving object, the transit or the natal, is Mars or Jupiter or Sun. If not, you do not include it. In other words, you have some clear definition, not a fuzzy definition, for why you included something. And then, of course, you have to specify exactly what the orb is, the allowable orb, and what the orb is at the time. How close to exact. The clearer everything is specified, the greater the confidence we have in the results. So I just want to underscore those points before we move on too much because I think they're so important. And one of the things with research is often executing what we have to do. Like we can know a lot of stuff. I
Hmm.
can know that I shouldn't smoke cigarettes, but if I smoke cigarettes, it doesn't do me any good. So you've got to do it. And I just want to emphasize, Christopher, do you have anything to add or to what I just said there?
Just a general footnote about the mean. The reason it's used so much in statistics is simply because it's a measure that is easily incorporated into more advanced techniques in statistics. Uh, but in this case, the mean would probably be a better
The,
measure of
the
the center of
median.
your data. I'm sorry, the median, thanks.
Yeah,
A better measure of the center of your data because it won't be so affected by an extreme result.
exactly. In most statistical situations, we do want the mean because then you can get distributions and get your, whatever t values and stuff. But in this case, we're not doing that. And we want the same thing with housing prices and all kinds of things. The median is tremendously better to use because what
Hmm.
happens if you have 10 people and eight of them score at low, one of them scores at medium, and the other scores at like a 10, you've got an oddball. Basically, you don't want to give much attention to the oddball. And it's the median's just much better.
Yeah, and the same for things like trying to find the average salary that someone in the country makes. You put in Elon Musk's salary, it makes it look
Yeah,
like we're all
everything's
earning
skewed.
a
Yeah.
million dollars a year.
This is important. When you're reading economics and they're saying, oh, the United States is the richest country in the whole world. No, they're not even, they're like hundredth. Well, are you using the mean? Are you using the median? If you use the mean, some countries come out really high. And if you use the median, it changes completely. If you have 1% of the people making 100 times more than everybody else, the mean is going to be inflated compared to what
Mhm.
the average person actually experiences.
Yeah.
And there's the intuition. When you hear the average income, you think, oh, if I move to that country, this is how much money I'll make. What you really want to know is the median if you're typical person, because that's what you're likely to make, not the mean, unless you're in that 1% and or potentially could be. Anyway, these things make a big difference. Okay, maybe I
Yeah.
belabored the point too much. Greg, you wanted to tell us more about your research.
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, my background is running quality assurance departments in manufacturing, and I've got, I've had many tab and stack graphics for my computer since the '90s. So I've done all these type of things you're talking about, and I agree with everything that you said. But I do understand it as far as the analysis and that. I
Good.
just wanted to quickly just show you how I was trying to get a common way to organize the data for people. And I just want let me share my screen here
Yeah, let me
quickly.
give you, I think I have to give you the ability to share, or you can just ask for it and
Let's see here. There we
um,
go. Share screen down here. Host disabled. Okay. Yeah,
okay,
it's
you can do it now.
disabled.
I gave you the ability to do it.
Okay. There we go. Okay, let me open this up real quick. I just for my different case studies, I just have a Excel workbook,
Okay, it's not
for
coming
instance.
up yet.
Oh, okay. Huh. Or do I?
You should just share, select the whole screen when you share. When
Yeah.
you click share,
It's
it'll ask you.
under. It's set. Okay. I'm saying that. Oh, here we go. Share.
There we go. It's coming up.
Okay. Okay. So let me get this up here. So what I've got in my workbook, I use 12 house systems. So I have each natal chart for each system as a reference. That will be in there. So these are the 12 that I'm using. I got whole sign, 3 meridian based, and the rest are ascendant based. So that can be referred to throughout. Then I have a house grid, and what I do, I show what house each system puts the different planets in. Then for the case studies, now this is just setting up my worksheet. These aren't actual scores yet. But on my studies, I'll show what planets are being looked at, like for study one, planets for study two, and then give it points based upon whether they match what the team through consensus agrees would be the correct houses. And then I have tabs for the actual case studies themselves, like this one here, where Carter's father died, which was a major life changing event for him. He left the Navy, went back to planes to take over the family business. I've got the transits, the key events, I've got the progressions, and solar arc directed.
And
So,
you have rules for which transits, progressions, and solar arcs you select.
yeah, I'm going to go. I'll go ahead and add a page to this workbook. I'll copy all that into it, so that way, anyone that I assign, would you please work on this particular biography? I'll give them a workbook with everything set up in it, and then they can do the study to find out the events and that. So this is what I'm trying to set up, but I will go ahead and have a page in here with all the rules
Mhm.
that will just be standard for each workbook. But I'm going to have a separate workbook for each case, each
Yeah, it's
individual.
important. Let me just clarify this, just to make sure this is clear to everybody. It's important that you set up clear rules. The people
Yes,
assessing the accuracy, they don't need to know all your, they don't need to know that. They just need to know what it is they're supposed to look at and interpret, right? It's like I can
yes,
drive a car without knowing how the engine works, or I can get in an airplane without understanding it. So they just need
correct,
to know what they need to look at to give their evaluation. The rules that you use to select those particular things, you don't want to burden the people assessing this with technical information that's not directly related to their evaluation.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And at the same time, I'm also, as things come up, I'm exploring. For example, if a planet is 4 degrees from the next house cusp, should it be considered in that next house? I mean, I've seen, for instance, I've got a Stephen Arroyo said anything within 6 degrees should be there. I get, Robert Hand talked about four to six, but I get conflicting things. So I'm wanting to be able to even use these studies to see, what degree can we even calculate what would be a reasonable degree to determine when it goes into the next house. So even those kind of things take some further study. So I'll go ahead and give you this back. Let's see here. I'll stop sharing. Here we go.
Let me say something about that. When does a planet go into the next house? Um, my feeling about research is it's all a matter of what your question is. Very often, the burning question that the researcher has is they want to evaluate something that they think. Like Greg may think that a planet starts having an influence in the next house when it's within 3 degrees. He might also think Coke houses are the best. So one of the questions is your research designed to be like objective in bringing in the point of view of different astrologers, or is the idea to test what you want to know? And
The, the idea is to see what does the data tell you.
right, but here's the trade-off. If you look at a lot of options, you've added a lot of work and complexity to the research, and you might be answering questions that you don't have a question about. In other words, if if you feel strongly about particular house systems or when a plant enters another house, if you might, I'm not saying you should, but you might want to test your ideas.
Yes.
And you're not required in research to please other people. Why do we do research? A, please other people. B, inflate our egos. C, write a big book so we can lecture around. Or D, learn how something works. The main purpose of research is to figure out how something works. And,
Yes.
you know, I always quote this thing from Richard Feynman, the physicist, that you take a guess and then you test your guess. So sometimes researchers feel like they're being narrow-minded or too subjective if they only research what they're interested in. And I don't think we should feel that way. You should just answer the question that you have. And if you're unsure about when a planet enters another house and you want that to be open-ended, or maybe you are sure, but you think sometimes you can feel sure and be wrong, it's just a matter of what you want to know. In other words, there's
But
no rule saying whether you should incorporate a lot of different opinions. It's a matter of just what your research, what questions your research wants to answer.
well, the focus of my research is what house is that planet in?
So you're
So,
not entirely sure, is that right?
correct.
Yeah, because you're not
And then
sure,
I
then it's a good idea to give these different options.
I'm just thinking in
Yeah.
terms of which house is a planet in. That sounds like it might be, and I'm sorry if this is derailing, but a bigger indicator would be just natal charts and people's overall biographies of people that are well known. If I say, here's this guy, does his expansive tendencies, are they more expressed in the area of, you know, where he, you know, sits down at the end of the long day, or is his expansive tendencies more in the area of, you know, his career? That seems like it might be able to do that. Just a thought that came
Yeah.
to me
Well, that's
in
why
another
I
way.
keep natal charts out of it because I totally reject a natal chart as personality traits. Just like Santino's research showed, the correlation between zodiac signs and behavior really isn't there. So I totally reject that aspect of natal astrology myself. Why I'm only wanting to focus on predictive work, which there's not a lot of discrepancy on. So I can just keep that side. That way people can assist me with this project without us getting into arguments over the meaning
Fair
of a
enough.
natal planet. Um, but I'm very passionate about that. I
Yeah,
see the
let me
natal chart as something totally different.
yeah, let me say this. I love what Greg is saying because again, I feel that the researcher is not responsible for other people's questions. They're only responsible for what they want to know based on they what interests them. Because what will happen when you do research is everybody will come in and they'll say, "Oh, why don't you look at this? And this asteroid is important." And da, da, da. Well, if you want to know that, you do the research.
Yeah,
It's not, let me say this again. It's just, this is not a standard rule of research. This is kind of my personal spiel, is that I just feel that the researcher should follow their passion. I do know when I was in graduate school, they all told us that make sure you feel very passionate about any dissertation or anything you do, because after you're battling through this for a year and you're tired, you're not going to have the stamina unless you are excited about it, unless you want to know. So this is what Greg thinks. he feels much more comfortable doing research with prediction than natal, that's what he should do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And Christopher, do you have, or anybody else trained in research methods, have any thoughts about this? Because this isn't like something you read in standard text on research methods. It's just kind of an opinion. So, Christopher,
Uh, I pretty much agree with what you said. Uh, Sometimes other people will make good suggestions about, they say, okay, you did this, but maybe you also want to look at something else similar to that. And sometimes you'll get a suggestion that you'll think, yeah, I really want to follow up and do that. I was thinking though about what uh, you were saying, that perhaps things will have an impact before we actually get to that house cusp. Because that made me think of the Huber system, the Hubers in Germany, and their system where they found that the coke houses worked the best, but there would transient planets would start to impact things before it actually reached the house cusp. And that made me wonder if you would have the time and resources to analyze that in two ways. One, using the exact house cusps and for various house systems, but then again, going back and backing up 3 or 4 degrees before the actual house cusp and treating that as when the house begins, seeing if,
Yeah.
maybe which way of doing it yields
Yeah.
the best
It will,
results.
yeah, because my understanding is that the house cusp is the strong point. It's not the exact beginning.
Yeah,
So,
that's,
but where is the beginning? Is it just a degree or two? Is it 3 or 4? So some of these planets that I see that are within, say, 3 or 4 degrees of the next cusp, I have to, I uh, have to consider that.
So does that
Or
mean, or
go ahead.
just my thought then, and I'm sorry for saying the natal thing. I didn't know that's a thing that you feel. That's cool, and that actually would explain a lot of stuff if natal charts don't do the personality things. Um, the uh the just with the overlaps, it sounds like there might be a probability distribution of how relevant a planet is to each house, where it's sort of like a relatively steep upward thing around the very beginning of it, and then it, go and then it stays at a sort of high-ish thing, and then it goes down towards the end of it, because we know that if something's towards the end of a house, it's a little bit less something, or at least I've
Yes,
I've heard that
yes,
colloquially. So
yeah,
maybe if we like create a model of like, okay, we have fourth house energy goes up with this, then goes a little bit this, then goes down, and then we have a similar thing for, fifth house and sixth house and seventh house, and maybe they'll overlap a little bit. And again, this is really complicated, and more complicated means harder to test. But if somebody's passionate about it, um, that
mhm.
might be useful, especially if you show whether there's a difference in accuracy between, one system over another. An improvement between one system versus another is a lot easier to show than this works, period, as far as I'm aware.
yeah,
Well,
I
one thing
think,
I'm finding is that if you have that planet falling close to a cusp, it's going to actually fall in probably 4 or 5 or 6 different house systems. Then they're going to put it the same place, especially if it's like on an angle.
mhm.
Uh, but that's something. All I want to do for this study right now is just try and verify which house system is the most accurate. It's just I have to look at that particular problem in order to distinguish between which house system is correct.
Oh,
I'm not trying to get exact.
yeah.
Yeah, it's beyond the study. There would be additional study to do what you're talking about. I think it would be very useful what you're talking about.
yeah. Let
But
me
Yeah,
I need to keep this simple.
let me ask one question, and then we should probably go on to someone else because we've
Yes.
only got another half hour or so.
Okay.
Greg? just briefly, how would you evaluate how do you plan to evaluate which house system works better? I mean, like, what are the people evaluating this going to do? Are they going to be given different interpretations for different house systems? Like, how will you figure out which house system or any other thing about variations in houses?
My goal at this time is to have a team where we look at individually look at the information, then get together and discuss it and come to a consensus on the houses if possible.
So it
Um,
wouldn't be like a strict procedure. You would just look at a bunch of data and brainstorm about it to see what's making the most sense.
yes, but at the same time, between the 12 systems, you usually, the discrepancy is only going to be a choice between one or two houses.
Right,
And usually it's fairly clear. If we pick the right case studies, it's fairly clear. But I also want to have enough case studies for each individual so that you're taking samples from around their chart. I don't want to just take, this person had a car accident that changed their life on this date and leave it at that. I want to be able to take 4 or 5 events from one person's life to show
right.
different areas of the charts to get a more holistic picture of it.
Yeah. Let me just make one more comment and open this up for some other people is that um, early stages of exploratory research where you're documenting these events happen in people's lives and people brainstorm about which is working better and you document it and you have like a spreadsheet showing which house system most consistently worked and what the evaluation is can be extremely important for getting beyond just everybody's personal opinion.
Yes,
And it's like clearing the air a little bit. Sometimes people want to get to some really solid conclusion, but it can be better sometimes to make incremental steps, like just get a better idea of what will work better in a stricter quantitative test. So I'm seeing what you're saying, what you're saying about this research is that it would help establish a framework for deciding which ideas are the most viable in a more a stricter quantitative test. Does
yes,
that make sense?
yes,
And that's something I personally feel very strongly about is the importance of different levels of research. Because, we start off with a lot of anecdotal evidence and tradition, and if we can just document and move one step above that, it gives us a clearer idea of what to test more rigorously. So, I mean, that sounds good and just putting into perspective. Um, Christopher, anyone else? Does anybody else have any last comments? I'd love to go on all night about this, but we've got a lot of people here, and I'm sure some others have some ideas of things they want to share.
Nothing else for me. I think we've
Okay.
covered it pretty well for now.
And let me interrupt and say hi again to my friend Pio. Many, many years ago, Pio helped me with daylight saving time information in South America, and he documented everything so clearly, and I put it in the software. So, mi amigo, it's good to see you after all these years. Really wonderful. Okay. All right, that's just a little personal diversion there. What else have we got here? Anybody else want to bring up a topic or a question?
Can
Um,
I
No,
ask
no,
something?
perfect.
yes,
Yep.
Nelson.
Sorry. It's
Good.
it's really quick. It won't take that long.
Yeah.
So it's regarding software. And the thing it might be related because as the research is practiced, sometimes I think people stumble upon some incompatibilities with files and all that. So, and since I am developing the Visual Astro, as you know, and I'm starting to do that part, which will be the import of other software of astrology, those exports. And as a first step, it will be the import, and then it will be the export. So is there any standard? Is there any specification or some most used standard that could be advisable to use for this? I mean,
Yes,
people have many software. They have the export. Many have the import.
yes, yes. There are some
What
standards.
what do you yeah? What do you
The-
suggest?
Um, there are several, there's not one, unfortunately, but there are several common formats used to transfer birth data. Like if you have Solar
Mhm.
Fire and then you get Visual Astro and you've got 1,000 clients in Solar Fire and now you buy Visual Astro, you want to get those 1,000 charts into Visual
Yeah.
Astro. And so I'm
Mhm.
just summarizing some basic principles here so everybody knows what we're talking about. So what happens is that Solar Fires needs to have an export feature to export their data out of whatever format they're using. And then Visual Astro has to have an import feature and they have to agree, like Solar Fire may have a bunch of
Yeah.
exports, but it may not be
Have
one that Visual. So this is the key thing, an export and import. And there are several formats that are popular. Matrix Software many years ago made the quick chart format. And a lot of programs will import and export a quick chart format. The serious software, which I worked on for 40 years, let me see. I put a whole bunch of import and export because every program had a different way of importing and exporting. So I ended up having to put a huge
yeah.
number of them in here. Let me just look at this quickly to remember which ones are the most popular. There's Quick Charge. Um, all the others are pretty specific. We've got Air, that's a specific program, XML file from
Mhm.
Brasher is Light. Um, so I also put in a flexible format of a comma delimited, in other words, a CSV file, and then I
Okay.
let the
Yeah.
user specify the
I like
order of the
TSVs.
data and different formats for the dates. So I went really to an extreme trying to make importing and exporting possible by giving a flexible CSV format. So you could say the date is going to be month, day, year with 2 digits for each one, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. A customization
There's
of
because there's
yeah.
no clear standards and the quick chart format that Matrix made didn't get picked up in later years by most programs. I think, what you might want to do is just what your users ask for and then find out. Most companies are pretty friendly, even though we compete with each other, and just ask them,
Mhm.
you just email them and say, I want to import data from your program and show me how you export so I can import.
Okay.
Not all the
Yeah.
companies
That
are friendly and mutually
yeah.
supportive. Some of them don't want to export because they don't want people using anybody else's software. But most of the people are pretty generous and cooperative and they'll gladly supply. That's what I did. I had to ask each company, how do you export,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. Or I ran their
And
software. Somebody else ran it. Sometimes customers would run it, send me the file, and I could see what it was. So the answer is
and tell
do
yeah.
your
And
best.
tell
There's
me and
no simple. Yeah.
and that leads to my second questions, which is okay. The software will allow some exploratory work and all that, and since people will have want to work with that data in other platforms or other work, would it be, and this is maybe just question just to stay there and see if it makes sense for the research and all that, having like a standard or having like something that could be organized in order for people to use um, in their research, would there be some guidelines, something that the Cosmobiology Institute would start to work in some kind of standard of output files, something that could be used
This,
in
yeah,
later work? What do you think about that?
is the
And the
desire,
classification and all that?
in other words, have standardized export and import formats, basically, is what you're saying. Have some kind of standard
Yeah,
that everybody
something
could do.
like that.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying would be a good idea?
no, not a good idea, but something that we could start to at least to think about, because as you know, the series has the classifications, the all that
Yeah.
classifying charts by
Okay, let me
something
just
like
answer.
that.
Let
Yeah,
me tell you the answer. I just wanted to confirm that that's what you is. This has been
yeah,
tried for the past 40 years, and nobody's succeeded in doing it. Now, some of the older companies have died, over the years, and there's new companies that have become very
yeah.
large. So, the Cosmobiology Institute wouldn't, I don't think, would be the right venue for that. It's really a matter of pulling together the owners of the software companies and talking to them directly and say, hey, let's have some standards for export and import. This has been attempted many times. We, there was about
Yeah, I
15
can
years
imagine.
ago, we had big discussions of 7 or 8 companies about it, and it never quite happened. So it's something that needs to be done between the companies. So,
I see. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
Um,
Thanks.
Yeah, and some of the popular programs have a lot of import export, and some of them have almost none. So some of the companies are not that cooperative. They just don't, they especially don't want to
Yeah, and I can
export
imagine
their data. So you'll have to just work
that.
with each
Yeah,
one.
there's a lot of reasons why, because that takes another extra effort,
Yeah,
and it's like we have no commercial use or interest to doing that effort. So
yeah.
I can see that. But my question was really related for the research itself. So if someone would like to export all the data, let's imagine that in this specific case about the vibrational astrology, like exporting all the circuits and all the isotraps and
No,
all
no, let
that
me
all
answer that
that
right away.
data
Let me just
that
answer.
that could be.
No, let me just answer that.
Yeah,
That's nobody's interested in that. What everybody wants is just to
yeah, okay,
export the
okay.
birth information.
Mm,
And then that program will recalculate whatever it wants to calculate.
all
If
right,
the
okay.
only time you're going to want to export, like vibrational charts or, complex relationships
Hmm.
is if you're exporting it into a statistics program like R as a CSV file, and then it's going to analyze it. But that's just a
Okay.
standard CSV file. And in R or whatever program you're using, you tell it, it reads it, it reads what tell what the format is. But between astrology
Okay.
programs, there's zero interest
Yeah,
in that.
yeah, of course. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's my answer. Basically,
yeah, yeah.
if we
So,
export to our CSV, the data is there. It can be worked on. Yeah. All
yeah, I
right.
mean, some people like to use JSON or XML, but
All right then. Yeah.
in general, the CSV file. Because if your data is a simple table, which generally it is, a CSV file is great. JSON is wonderful if you're bringing something into an application, like somebody's writing something in Python and they want to incorporate that data or complex information, like the Astro Data Bank is in an XML file when they export it. So for complex
Hmm.
relationships that have many, many categories, an XML or JSON format is recommended. If it's a simple table, generally people use CSV because JSON and
Yeah.
XML are overkill. And
Yeah.
and for
Because
things
yeah.
like statistics software, like if you're using R, the standard thing is to just read CSV files. That's what everybody does. But if you're
Mhm.
integrating into different environments or you have very complex information, Astro Databank, you can have 20, 30 categories. You have all this complex information, and that doesn't fit into well, it could, but anyway, they use XML, which is often used.
Sure. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay. For integrating different programs, JSON is often recommended. But that's not what people are doing. If you're doing with other software developers and you're integrating systems, that's a whole different world. Okay, what else do we have?
There's a
I
there.
oh,
No, go ahead. Sorry, I
no,
talked too
no,
much.
that's okay. You can go ahead.
Oh, just real quick, there's something that I found called quantum birthmarks. I found it after a video by the Action Lab on branched what's it called? Branched something. Um, branched flow. And basically it's an example of a system that you would expect to sort of like become stable like the surface of water after there's a thing dropped on it. But
Mhm.
instead of that, if it's in a certain shape, then forever the average ripple stays in a certain shape, and that depends on how the drop was dropped onto it. Um, they call it quantum birthmarks,
Mm.
which I and it's like an actual thing, and that's exactly the sort of thing. Maybe it fits like on the inside of an atom where there's no energy loss, where I've been wondering if that's a sort of thing where there might be storage of, for instance, natal chart information, whether actually inside an atom or in like an system of a bunch of atoms where there's, you know, you can't get the data from one, but if you look at a whole bunch of molecules, there's that um, existing thing. And it's just pull up the can I just share a screen so that we can have that
Yeah, let me give
for the
you,
record?
yeah, just one second. Um, okay, you can share.
Thanks. Here we are. Getting the okay.
I just realized Manda is here and she told me she's got some stuff she wants to talk about. So I
Yeah,
think after Benjamin, I'm going to see if Manda
yeah.
wants to.
And it's just
Yeah.
this title so you can see the um title. Quantum Birthmarks, Ergodicity, Breaking Beyond Scarring by these guys. And
Yeah.
this dude, Eric J. Heller, he does a
Hmm.
lot of stuff on branched flow, which is, I think, also going to be really, really relevant for this down the line. But that's all. I just sort of wanted to get that out there
Oh,
to
thank
let you know
you.
that's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you. These taking ideas from other disciplines like physics or whatever can sometimes have a dramatic effect on another field. So being aware of these things, exploring different ways of modeling information um, can lead to breakthroughs sometimes. So thanks for sharing that, and it's something people can track down. There's always a possibility that there's some new way of looking at our astrological data that's related to some other field, and incorporating it could lead to a big breakthrough. So thank you for sharing that. Let me call on Mend. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Santino. So
Hey,
can I share some information about?
yeah, yeah, and I'm going to give you the ability to share your screen if you want to.
No, I don't want to share the screen at this point.
Okay,
Just
yeah, go
want to kind of
ahead.
share some information first, and then yeah, maybe the next time I can do that.
Yeah,
So I've kind of given you very little information about that before. So basically, I did a basic study on quincunx, right? Using the using serious software and extreme sampling methods. So what we did was out of all the extreme sampling charts that came, I chose the first 100 of them. And then, not all of them had the biography. And also, the way I searched in Sirius is basically I said anything with a 12th harmonic. So it gave me both semi-sextiles and quincunx, right? Because And so I had to go back, take that 100 charts, and then go back and remove the ones, only get the ones that are quincunx. So I have to check each one of them and just choose the ones that had the quincunx. Like I said, this was just my first basic study, right? And um, and what I found was and finally, after checking the ones that just had some bios on them, some information, there was only about 46 charts. And then I looked at those, and there were certain characteristics that just came out of them. Like 24% of them had an accident very early on in their life, illness or accident, like 24% of them. And about 20%, about 18% of them had lost a loved one, often very early on in their life. When I mean early on, it's before the age of 15. They had lost at least one parent. Actually, this was the one that made me to study quincunx because I kind of started looking at it just kind of in a fun way. But then I found that many of them have people that died. I mostly a parent that died. One of the parents died before the age of 15. And then there was also other things that show, changes in life path, like very drastic changes in life path. So my thing is, on the whole, when you look at it, it's to me, it's like quincunx from this basic study. The quincunx is something that creates a situation where the person has to adjust to it. It's a big part of their life story is they had a situation and they had to adjust to it. But the thing is, of course, it's a very basic study. To really confirm this, I have to do a control group, right? Now, I now previously when I did control groups, like for another study of mine, which is on Vesta, I took the total number of test charts and then multiplied that. For every one of them, I made 25 control charts. I kind of used the same location, like same longitude and latitude, and I chose a date that I chose any random date 1 year before or 1 year after. You see what I mean? So for each test chart,
Yeah,
I created 25 for each of them. So if it's
yeah,
40, then it's 40 times 25, and
right.
I shuffled some of but I kept the coordinates, the latitude and longitude,
Yeah,
and also the years. I didn't want it to go too much because I kind of didn't want it to have a whole different set of data. I kind of wanted to have some things that are
yeah.
similar. So I'm just trying to find out how can I take this study and make it into something that's valid, something that's bigger, something that's, I can confirm it.
Okay, I've got lots of ideas.
Okay, please.
Um, Thank you explained that beautifully. Let me address some of these points, and I'm going to review a little bit so everybody can follow what you're saying.
Okay.
Man is researching quincunxes, 150-degree aspect. She wants to know what it means. What does it do? So she decided to do extreme case sampling research using Sirius. Now you don't need, and you ran 12th harmonic, and then 12th harmonic involves also the semi-sextile. So you manually went through and separated out the quincunxes. You don't need to do that. You could just run the quincunxes directly.
Oh, is there a way to do that? I didn't know that
Yes.
because I
And
spoke
so
with
let me,
Linda, and Linda told me the only way to do it is do this way. So if there was a way to just get quincunx, I would love that.
okay, so let me show you in this particular software. So I'm going to go to research. I'm going to go to Astra Signature Research. And even if you don't use this software, the principles are important. Like, can your software give you the information you want? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to
Is it
make a,
serious? Is it same as serious or is it something else?
this is serious I'm running,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so it's the same software you're running. Um, so if I go into an Astra Signature, and I'm going to call this quincunx, and in this particular software, you make a list of what you want. Well, I can just say aspect, and I
Mm-hmm.
can say angle is 150 degrees. And for this research, the orb does not matter. I'll explain why it doesn't matter in a second, but I'll just put 3 degrees
Okay.
um, for the applying and separating orb. And oh, you want to do any planets, right? Or a
At
quincunx?
this point, I want to do any planets, but the number of quincunx is what I'm looking for, right? The more
Okay, but you want quincunxes between any two planets.
any two planets. And if it's
Okay,
a
so for
yard,
that,
if it's a
in this,
yard, I count it as two. But if it's a yard, I still count it as two
okay,
quincunx.
yeah. Okay, so what you could do in this particular software is we can set up the sun quincunx moon. So I select sun, moon, 150 degrees, and I'll explain later why the orb doesn't matter that much. What orb did you use?
I use two and a half.
Okay, so I'm going to put 2 degrees, 30 minutes. Now, for this particular software, it's a little bit tedious, and I'll show you a shortcut. I've got
Okay.
Sun Moon. She also wants Sun Mercury, Sun Venus, Sun Mars, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
It's like 45 combinations of 10 planets. So one thing is it's tedious, but you could insert new item. And then unfortunately, when you insert a new item, it replicates the previous one. And so I can just keep inserting new item and
Mm,
change the planet. So it really doesn't
okay.
take that long. And you would set up all 45 of this. I don't think there's a way in this particular software to tell it to just do a group. So you would have to do it one by one.
Yeah.
But
So you
once you
can't
set
just
it up,
say sun to Pluto, right? Choose anything sun to Pluto. I have to guess.
no, you cannot
Okay.
do that here. Now, let me show you a shortcut is um, you're only going to do this once, so it's really not that bad. But
Mhm.
a faster way to do it is it tells you here that the information is saved in a file called renek.def. So sometimes the software has, um, a user interface access into the information, and sometimes it's like in a database or some other file that you can edit. In this case, it's in a text file. So I can open this file and edit it.
Mhm.
However, if you start putting garbage in there, it's not going to run.
All
It'll just
right.
come up and give error messages. But let me show you what the file looks like, because if you're in a situation like this, it does speed it up. And again, even if you don't care about this software, the principle is important that oftentimes there can be something in the user interface, but if it's not in the user interface, it might still be possible to edit directly. So I'm going to open up this file, rnek.def, and oops, I guess I didn't save it. Hold on a second. I didn't click on save. Save changes. So now I've saved it.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell I didn't save it because it's had the old title. This obviously is the title. I called it quincunx, and here's the list of aspects. Now it looks weird, but what it's saying is this IAS means aspect, and this is documented in the help system. That one means sun, two means moon,
Mm, okay.
and this is the angle, and this is the orb, and this is the number of points. Now it shows a range, but it doesn't work in the research. So if faster, you could also just use the editor if that's faster for you, and you can edit the file.
So I can do it this way, or I can just do it right in the, like you showed me, right there in the.
Right, exactly. You can do it in the software,
Right.
or you can do it this way. Since the software is really not that slow and terrible, and if you do it this way, you have to think about what you're doing and you can
Yeah.
make mistakes. I would suggest you do not do this. But if you get more experience with the software and you feel comfortable with it, or it's not so easy to do with the user interface, this
Yeah.
can be helpful. Now, if I save this and I go back in the program and I go to customize, there they are. I put in Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, which I did manually with the editor. To keep it simple, you can just go in and edit this file. It won't take that long.
Yeah.
You'll have 45 of these. You only do it once, it's done.
And also, Linda said she could send it to me. She said she's already done that. She has this.
Right, you can edit it. That I can if I went in and I did all this, I can email you rnek.def. But you don't need anybody to help you. I just showed you what to do.
Yeah.
This is not difficult. So just do it yourself. I mean, it'll take
Yeah.
you maybe 10 minutes. I mean, it's tedious, but it's not that bad for what you're doing. Um, Yeah, so that's all you got to do. That's going to save you a lot of time and trouble later if you had done this, because
Yes.
going through manually and picking out the
Hmm.
quincunxes, that's deadly tedious. So this is much more efficient. So what she's doing is she creates this feature, and then you run it against the people, and it tells you who has the most quincunxes with the smallest orb. There's some controls. It can either just count them, or it can give more strength to the ones that are strongest. And then it gives you a list which you can save, and it tells me that this guy Maurizio Polini, he has the most quincunxes. And
Hmm.
so if I look at his chart, he has more than one quincunx because it's got a lot of points. I can let's see, how do I do this again? I can if I click on his name, I can actually add him to my current entries. And then when I get out of here, I don't have to enter him. He's automatically added. I can look at his chart.
Interesting.
And why did he get so many points? He has only one quincunx. Oh, a 2.5 degree orb. My orb is probably smaller.
Hmm.
So if I go in and I customize it and I make the quincunx have a bigger orb, um, then it would show up. Let me go to a different thing here. I'll just go to large orbs and go to customize. And if I set the orb for quincunxes to 2.5 degrees, oh, here it's already 3 degrees in this one. So I'll just leave that. So there's the two quincunxes. He has a yod.
Yeah.
And what happened is one of them is very, very tight, sun moon almost exact. The sun Jupiter is less than 2.5 degrees, so it got some more points, and he ended up with over, there were 99 points for one of them. He got over 100 points.
Hmm.
So now, why do we want to look at the people who have the strongest, the most quincunxes? The theory is this, and they use this a lot in genetics research, for example. The theory is that if the quincunx means anything at all, then Maurizio Pollini should have some qualities of quincunx. He's the
Hmm.
biggest quincunx guy around. So it's like what I was saying to to Greg, that it's an exploratory research to see if the ideas are viable. Because if your people with the most quincunxes do not have anything in common that you were expecting with quincunxes, you have high confidence that your ideas are wrong.
Hmm.
It's more confidence than just what we've inherited or believe from doing charts. It's not huge confidence like you would get in a quantitative study, but it gives us some confidence. Now, um, Manda's done all this basically, and now she wants to bring it to the next level. So, what you can do, she noticed by looking at the data that a lot of these people had accidents, loss of loved one, change in life path. So, what you can do, you did a brilliant thing on your own. You started making an artificial control group. Instead of taking another group of people, you decided to create a control group where they're born within 2 years and their charts would be somewhat similar. That's brilliant, and there's already a technique developed to do that automatically for you called the shuffled control group.
Hmm.
So in this particular software, you can just tell it, create the shuffled control group, done. So Amanda, you've done a lot of work and removing the semi-sextiles and whatever, and you did a lot of group work trying to make a control group. And I think there's a faster way to do it. And in this particular software, you can go to the research and then make data for stat software or control group. There's a
Hmm.
word we want, control group, and then create control group. So you go in here, you select your charts. You have, well, this is tedious.
So
You,
how do you put all the charts in that? So you got to have all the charts in one file.
exactly. Well, this is not so simple. You have to take each one of your charts
Okay.
and give them their own category. It's nasty. So this is
So,
tedious. So
but
in other
why
words,
would I
what you
give
would
them just one question? Wouldn't they all be in one category?
no,
Because
because if you search the whole database
hmm
for people that have, like Maurizio Puini, he has the super quincunx. Well,
hmm
if I pull up his chart,
hmm
he happens to be a piano player.
hmm
Now, somebody else might be, a painter. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
they're in different categories. So,
Okay. Okay.
unfortunately, with this software,
Okay.
it will not take the results from your research and access them. So, you have to manually, at least as far as I can think of right now, maybe there's a trick I'm not thinking of, but as far as I can think of right now, you'd have to go in and say, select another category for each one of your 100 people or 50 people, whatever you're doing. You'd have to put them in their own category. So I go in here to select categories. You go to My Data, and you make a category for a quincunx control group.
hmm
So you have to take each one of those people,
Create.
one by one,
hmm
put them in a new category.
Mm.
All I have to do is, and I can change the name of this category to quincunx control group.
So Santino, this is what we need. These are the things that need to be made easier.
Yeah, well, I no longer am part of Cosmic Patterns, so I'm going to develop new software.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's always new features needed in any software, and that's the limit of this software. And to get it to do more, you'd have to, contact Cosmic Patterns and ask them if they would add that feature. Um,
But Santino, when you actually ran it and it brought up Maurizio and few other people, right? It brought up all those people.
right.
Isn't that in a file? All that isn't.
It's in a file, yes. Good question. It's in a file, but now when I do the research, I need to compare those, say, top 50 people that you have. I need
Mhm.
to compare them to the control group. Well, this software is too stupid to know that those 50 people are the ones I want, and I have to manually recategorize them so that I have them as a group.
Okay, so I just need to put them all in one group then.
Yes, one at a
Okay,
time,
okay,
call up their charts,
okay,
click on this thing to put them in a category and do it.
okay,
It's because this stupid software is too idiotic. I can say that because I wrote it.
okay.
Um,
So, okay,
that
so yeah,
that's all it can do. So this is the reality of research. Sometimes your software is wonderful. It has the database can do so. This part's not good. You're gonna have to go through, put them in a category. After you do that,
yeah,
then you can go to the research and make a control group.
okay,
And now my category, I'll be able to select the
yes,
category.
yes.
I go in here to select a category. I go down to where I made a category for people with quincunx. Well, I've made a category for quincunx people. I select that. And then I select the category for the control group. And then it will just, bam, it'll just create the shuffled control group.
Okay, so shuffle control groups are the same number of charts, right? But it's just shuffling it.
Exactly. It'll be the same number of charts, and what it does, it takes the name, the date, time, and place, shuffles them together, so the control group is incredibly similar to the experimental group. But what you can do is you can run this several times
Hmm.
and add all those charts together if you want a bigger control group,
Yeah.
which is a good idea. It's a good
Okay.
idea to run it 10 times instead of 50, you'd have 500. And
Got it.
you can like combine them all together. Now you have something for researchers that's it's the beautiful. Like it's just so to die for because you've got an experimental group, you've got a good control group.
Hmm.
Right in the software, you can run a t-test or you can, export it and use statistics, whatever you want, statistical software. So you've got something really good. And what this would show is what would you conclude if you get good results, high statistical significance and good effect size or whatever, then you could say that your model is good.
Hmm.
You built a model
Right.
and the model looks good. How much confidence does that give us that your interpretation is correct? Low, medium, high? It would give us a low confidence because all you did was build a model, right? Now, if you collect more data
Hmm.
and you run it with new data and it confirms what you found with this data, you went from low confidence to, oh my God, this is awesome.
But Santino, a control group won't make sense in this, right? Because I'm trying to see what would be a purpose of the control group in this
The
case.
purpose of the control group, oh, you're right.
Doesn't
The
make any
con
sense in this
the control
case.
group wouldn't help because you're
Yeah,
evaluating whether
yeah.
they had certain events.
So I
Okay,
have
you're
to use
right.
a different kind of a control group, something completely different.
Well,
Um,
let me just repeat why it doesn't make sense. The only reason it doesn't make sense is you're going to want to look at the control group to
Bio.
see if, hold on, to see if they had loss of loved ones or were in accidents as much as the
Mhm.
people with quincunx, correct?
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
since they're not real charts, they have no history and we have no way to find out. So in this case, you're going to have to use real charts of real people who have real biographies to see if
Mhm.
they had accidents and
Yeah,
loss
so
of
I
loved
have to
ones.
choose control group from that. So yeah, I have to
Mhm.
create a control group.
Yeah. Christopher, any thoughts on this? Yeah.
I think there's a way around it. It may be kind of tedious, but this is a problem I've encountered and thought of before. Uh, if you're looking, for example, if it appears that people with quincunxes have more accidents in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
if you sort of flip the input and the output, if you take a sample of charts for people who've had accidents, and then some of those or a lot of those will have quincunxes. Um, then, if you shuffle the birth data for the people who have accidents, then you can look at those charts and see if the number of quincunxes is more or less than what you expected in
Mm-hmm.
the as compared to the original accident group. And
Okay.
you can do a statistical
Yeah.
test,
That's,
but also there's a way, in this setup, I'm using accidents for input, quincunxes for output.
Mm-hmm.
Mathematically, there's a way to switch it around, and it's kind of, I don't think I can describe it online right now, but it involves using either a Bayes theorem to switch things around, or an easier way is you can set up a contingency table, 2 by 2 table with accidents, no accidents, quincunxes, no quincunxes, and then it becomes very easy to sort of switch around your input and output and uh,
yeah.
do a test frequency or proportions to see if things are significantly different.
Yeah, while you were talking, I came to the same conclusion that you came up with the end. What we could use for a control group, and this is one, I think, fairly easy solution, is when you get the list,
Right.
when you run the program. In fact, this is what they do in genetics research. So I should have thought of it, but it took me a while to think of it. Is that when I run the research, I get a list of, let me run it so that it's not too abstract. If I run this thing, um, quincunx research, so I run it. I'm running it on a small group of people, just 40 people. You can take the ones at the bottom, and there's a few different ways to do this. You could take the bottom, you can take all the ones with a zero
Hmm.
because you want a large control group. So I would take all of it, or if it's ridiculously large number, take just bottom 500, or you can, do every so often. However you want to do it, you take the ones with zeros, and that's your control group.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought of doing that same thing when Manda was first talking about controlled groups. That was the very first thing that occurred to me rather
Yeah,
than show control groups. Just take the people at the bottom of the list rather than the people at the top.
exactly, exactly. In fact, when I corresponded with the people doing the genetics research, one of the suggestions that they had for me is they said, use the bottom people for your control group.
Hmm. That's very
Because
nice.
I was saying I did zodiac signs and I found that Aries was not aggressive. They weren't, pugilists or whatever, but they had this kind of independence. And I said, I don't have a control group. She says, you do have a control group. Take the ones with zero, you dummy. She didn't call me a dummy, but that's what it amounted to. Is like, you've got a control group, all those zeros. So getting that from these experts, university professors who use it for serious genetics research gave me a lot of, confidence because they're better experts at this particular methodology than I am, that is a good thing to do. So actually,
That's
this is
interesting
wonderful news because you've got your control group
right
right
there.
there.
Yes.
So we're
And
finding, let me say one more thing. We're finding that some steps of what Manda's doing get a little bit tedious, some are straightforward. And by brainstorming, having several of us think about this, I think we came up with something very cool. I mean, some tedium involved, but not terrible.
so, Santino, when we run this, does it any kind of like research, like quincunx, whatever, it takes all the charts in the thing and then orders it, gives it a score based on the
Well, you
score?
can run the t-test. What'll happen is you would have to take, actually, this could get very tedious because you're going to have to take the people with scores, put them in one category.
Right.
You're going to have to take the people with zeros, get them in another category. There's some tricks to do that. You could export them. Anyway, somehow you have to get them into another category just because of the limitations of this software. Or maybe you can export it to other software that's more elegant. But anyway, once you get the zeros into another category, then you click on save. You just save these results. And right here, you can do a t-test right here. And you've saved them into two files. And then you just, um, let me see, if I take, I've got some garbage in here. If I take 23 vibe, um, I should, let me see if I can find something useful. Um, well, I don't seem to have two files here. But if I did, these are probably not even valid files. Oh yeah, they are. Anyway, you would select the two files, the one for people who have, um,
Yeah.
who scored high and the people who scored zero, and then it'll tell you
Yeah.
what the statistical significance is right here.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So you can run it right here, and a t-test on this kind of data is, is a good test. and even tells you what Cohen's d is, which is nice. So, um, yeah, and it gives other technical information about the standard deviation and so on. But the main thing is what the t value is. The t value will determine the statistical significance. Now, this program is limited in what statistical significance it will give you. So what you can do is you can take the t value and then just Google t value to p value conversion, and online you'll find a table, and it'll tell you that 11.43 is like 1 in a billion. So, but this program doesn't know how to do that. It only goes to zero zero 0.001 and stops. But anyway, that's a technical issue. But this t value allows you to get more precise p values than this program. See, it even tells you how limited it is. It only tests at 001, 01, 02, and 05. If something's way better than 001, it won't detect it. But anyway, that's your procedure. The most tedious thing is taking these scores and putting them in their own category. And maybe you can combine with some other software that could make it easier. Or I could think about it, and there might be some trick. I, to categorize, because it's not so bad for the 100 experimental group, but if you have 500 control group, that's 500 charts you have to bring up and manually change a category. Okay. Um, yeah.
Can I just ask a little question while you've got this up?
Yeah.
And that is how do you delete categories in this? I haven't worked out a way to delete categories.
Why would you want to delete a category?
Deciding to change the criteria and file destination.
Okay, here's with this particular software, which I'm mentioning has a lot of limitations, all astrology software does, is you have 1,000 my category options. It it's hard to imagine you're going to need more than 1,000 categories. So if you want to change categories, you can just select one of these unused categories and recategorize them.
Okay.
Because you have a
Okay. All
thousand of
right.
them. You don't have to reuse anything.
Okay.
You're never going to use 1,000 categories. Um, so you don't have to remove them. Just reassign them to something new.
But maybe what you mean is just making them empty? Is that what you mean? Because I've
Yes.
done that
Yes.
before. I just go and take out all the files and delete from there to give it to
Uh,
use it for another thing. So I don't delete the whole category. I just take the files out of there.
I don't
oh,
understand what you mean by
okay.
delete a category. So, for example, let's say I have, let's go into the data entry screen here, and I'm doing research on LeBron James, uh, athletic research. So I've got LeBron James in here. Um, And he is classified as well, it's not categorized very well. It should be basketball player, but it's not even categorized well. So, um, if you want to have no category for him, I'm not sure why you would want to do that. But if you did, the essentially a low no category is this thing, main category. It means it's a my data unclassified. I mean, if you have somebody and you don't want to classify them, you don't want to say that they're a basketball player or anything, you just want to say it's a person, that's what this category is. But I don't know why that's important. It doesn't affect your research. The only thing that affects your research is to get the people you want in a category.
But what if you had people in a category that you don't want them anymore? You want to replace them?
You just change their category.
No, I can't delete them. I could just delete it, right? All the people in the category and then put in new people.
You don't want to delete people from your database, do you?
Oh, so it deletes from the database all the people if I
Well, when
take
you
it.
say delete, I mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
I'm removing them from the category. Does it mean
the
it's going?
way to delete them from a category is to give them a different category.
Oh, I have to give them a different category. Okay. Oh,
And I think there's a fast way to do that. There's a way to reassign all charts in a category to another category. So you can take all the people in that category, assign them to a different category, and that's easy. I won't show it right now, but you can do that. You don't have to do them one by one.
Mhm.
You can reassign all people in a category to another category. Does that make sense? I mean, there's no reason to
And
quote delete them if you don't want them to be in your quincunx group or whatever anymore. Just assign them to some other category. That's all.
thank you, Santino.
Yeah, because if you delete them, I don't know what delete means. You mean you would delete them from the database or what? I don't know. You don't want to do that, probably. Yeah, Christopher.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the question of finding a more accurate p-value for a minute.
Yeah,
Just as a test, while you were talking, I went to Microsoft Copilot, which is the AI built into Microsoft's browser, and as a test, I just said, "What is the p-value when t equal 5 and degrees of freedom equal 10?"
right.
Hit enter, and instantly it came back with the probability value. So that's a real nice, easy, quick way to do it that might work for
Yeah, beautiful.
in
All of
this
these AI
instance.
tools are amazing. You just ask them any question, and usually they pop back with an answer. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still in the habit that I don't always think of the AI tools to answer my questions. Um, but gradually I'm remembering that just like when we got used to Google search could find anything real quickly, is that the AI tools will answer a lot of your questions just immediately. Um,
so Centino, can I use like, let's say, if I get a test group of 100 people, I'm just saying, because I'm using the ones that have the most quincunx or the strongest quincunx score, right? So I won't get more than 100 in extreme sampling, right? And then I choose the control group with the zeros, maybe choose 500 of them. Would
yep,
that still make, will that be a valid, if it comes significant, will it be valid based on the numbers and stuff, number of tests?
absolutely, absolutely. That will be wonderful research.
Okay,
You've built a data-driven model.
okay.
So astrologers are walking around saying, "Oh, you have a quincunx.
Mhm.
You might get into an accident." Well, you have actual data that confirms that it's actually true.
Right.
So, from the point of view of modern research methods, what astrologers believe has extremely, almost like no confidence. So, from a evidence-based practice point of view. Once you build a model and it's supported by data, that increases us from maybe 1% confidence to something like 5% or whatever. It's hard to put a number on it. Well, you might say 1 to 5 is as much as 5 times better. How would you like your salary to be increased by 5 times or, whatever? Like, it's actually big. And then if you can collect new data or you have new data, and then it works with that, you're going, say, from 5% to maybe 20%. And then if you replicate it 3 or 4 times, it's up near 80% or whatever. It's hard to put numbers on these things. But, you're incrementally going from near zero. And if you can get more data and replicate over and over again, it has high confidence. You've now shown with high confidence that astrological variables produce measurable effects. That's a historical discovery. So it's all about confidence levels and going from near zero and how high can you go with it. But I would say it's valid and it's a big step forward. Christopher, do you have any comments? Because there's a lot of ways of thinking about these things.
No, no,
Okay,
nothing
we're
to add
good.
now.
One of the
Thank
important
you.
things in research is to have, several people with expertise talk about it because it's real easy to overlook something. So having Christopher here to check what I'm saying is really extremely helpful because um, in research methods we all make blunders. It's just easy to overlook something.
Thank you, Santino and Christopher. Thank you. Appreciate it. It gives me an idea.
I have
You're
a quick
welcome,
question for
Amanda. It's
Manda.
fantastic what you're doing. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see, did you just publish a study in correlation, Manda?
Yes, I did on midpoints.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and Santino knows that this midpoint thing, I've been doing it for a long
She's been
time.
doing it. I saw her for her lecture. How many years ago? We might reveal our
More
age,
than,
Amanda.
yeah,
How many
more
years?
than 15 years ago.
It was
Yeah.
more than 15 years ago. We had this pre-conference thing on research, and I don't know, about 10 people got up or more and talked about their research. And I was frankly kind of bored by most of it. And then Manda gave her research on winning lotteries and midpoints were good. I went up to her right after. I said, "Great presentation." She had actual data, some results. She built the model, and it was a lot of people were just like, I don't know, it was just kind of vague. But she had done some actual real research.
So thanks. I'm glad that I was able to put it together in the form of a research, and publish.
Mhm.
Yeah, so 15 years later,
Yes.
you know, you're moving forward. And so this is exciting to me. This is
Thank
because
you.
I personally think astrology actually works. There's measurable results, and we have to find them.
Yes.
And yeah,
Very good.
and once we do, I think astrology will move mainstream because data is data, and what we're saying is no stranger than what people in physics say. It's just a matter of having the data to show that there's really something there. That's just my opinion. Um, are we good? We've run a half hour over. Um, I was kind of determined to stick close to an hour and a half, but with me, that never happens. But it's not good to have a manic person run this. Okay. Um, okay, we're all good. This was a great meeting, by the way. This was really,
Yeah,
really good. Um, what Greg is doing, what Manda's doing, and the other things that were brought up, very, very cool. I didn't have an agenda, but I think this was really productive and exciting. Okay, we're all good?
Thank you.
You're
mhm.
welcome. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.